Washington in nearly 100 years. I read an editorial today that this is the most consequential presidency in history. How about that? And it wasn't even by a group that would normally be supporting us. It was a group of people that I think they tend to be on the liberal side. And what a nice thing. I'm going to start again subscribing to that particular paper. Even if I don't read it much, I'm going to subscribe. We're ushering out the long reign of special interests and the radical left lunatics, and we're ushering in the golden age of America. That's what we have. Nowhere has this transformation been more dramatic than our southern border. You have seen a change on your southern border that Sleepy Joe said couldn't happen. Sleepy Joe, the worst president in history, said it couldn't happen. The last administration engineered a massive border invasion, allowing gangs, cartels, and terrorists to infiltrate our communities and rape and murder our citizens. And that is being nice about it. That's actually being nice about it. They are the worst. But standing before you today, I can proudly report that this heinous betrayal is over and that we have achieved the most secure border in American history by far. In American history. We're restoring the rule of law, which was sort of out the window with this crazy guy we had. How the hell did that guy ever become president? Could somebody explain to me? But we're ending the inflation nightmare, the worst that we've had probably in the history of our country, getting woke lunacy and transgender insanity the hell out of our government.
All right, welcome on a Wednesday. How are you? You've made it halfway through your week. Congratulations to you. That makes you feel better, right? That's a good thing. And that was the 100-day speech. And of course, I've got Melissa Smith with me. And because it's, Wednesday, followed by Susan, we're going to be talking about Catherine Austin Fitts later on in the show today with Tucker. We're going to talk about Canada. We're going to talk a little bit about Spain. We're going to talk a little bit about Germany. All kinds of stuff in today's show. How are you, Melissa?
I'm good because it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. So it was, it was interesting speech, and there's just so much I could dissect in that. But it's only 100 days, so I never expected miracles, but I would like to see more than just the woke stuff. More than that, I'd like to see more than that, and what can I say? Anyway, there was a lot in that. So it was good. It was pumped up, but we talk a lot about the removal of the woke stuff. And what drives me crazy is like, that's not all there is. That's like the superficial stuff. And we don't all buy into that anyway, most of the country. And so I think they raised the crazy on the left to raise the height of the new normal, and then we bring it down a little bit, but we're at a new normal. And so that's what I'm talking about. I just feel like, okay, shove that aside. What are we really doing to stop anything or real change to, that's what I'm asking about. So we mentioned the woke stuff a lot, but and everyone cheers, and I get it because I can't stand the woke stuff, but that's just not all there is to the puzzle. And on the border, sometimes I think that they did that on the border, when Hormala wouldn't go down to the border, they wouldn't even visit it. It just seemed very orchestrated, right? And I don't know, it just seemed really orchestrated to me. And so, and then even Trump, he used the word engineered at the border. I don't know, just something just seems a little off, but nice speech. How about that?
Well, I'm just waiting to hear what Kamala says in her big first speech in front of the nation, because you know what a fan I am of hers.
Oh my gosh.
I just am waiting, waiting and waiting.
Little Hormala. Where has she been, by the way? No one's seen her for 100 days. Where is she?
Therapy. It's hard to be that big a loser.
Oh, yeah. She's trying to complete a sentence. I don't know.
That was a pretty big public humiliation.
Yeah. Well,
so that's where I'd be if I were her.
She literally can't complete a sentence. So I'm hoping she's working on those skills. Okay, let's start with Canada.
Well, I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't have all of the answers. I have one eyewitness account of what went down in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and that's enough because what it tells is a tale. If this is accurate and true,
Mm-hmm.
then multiply it across all of Canada, and what do you have?
Yeah.
So this person put into writing what her experience was working at the polls.
Okay.
Yes. What was it? Yesterday? Is that right?
Yes.
The 28th, 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days
right?
ago. Mm-hmm. Monday. Mm-hmm.
So here's her first thing. 50% of the people that came into her polling location asked if they could use their own pen, and they were told that they could.
Uh-huh.
And then later, when the polls closed and they were doing the tally, because they had paper ballots, right?
Uh-huh.
We're going to prevent election fraud with paper ballots. When they did the tally, the deputy returning officer called out the name of the candidate, and then this person would record it. And she noticed that none of the ballots had any pen on them. They were all filled out in pencil.
Mm.
She just thought that that was interesting.
Well, it's weird, and there's just election fraud everywhere, and they get their guy in. I mean, this guy was all for the pedo stuff. He's all for the cross-dressing movement. I mean, this guy is a nightmare central bank fraudster.
Yeah. He is
Yeah.
everything that Trudeau was and more.
Yeah. We just keep getting the hiked up version of it, you know?
So here's some more stuff that went down. This was her second point, was that she noticed that many voters were turned away even though they had proper ID. Voters were being refused because they had to have their, what is it called? Election Canada approval. And so at her particular ballot place, a whole apartment building had never been recorded by Election Canada, so there were no ballots for that location. So all of the people that came in, even though they had proper ID, they had driver's license, mortgage documents, rental agreements, all this stuff, they were told, you can't vote here because you are not registered by Election Canada, and Election Canada was not available to call or check with the whole day.
Yeah. Seems like every election everywhere is kind of like this, doesn't it? I mean, it rings a bell. We haven't changed a thing. So,
well, the story that it tells to me is that, to use an old cliche, where there's a will, there's a way. And if we think that paper ballots are the solution, or voter ID is the solution to stopping voter fraud, I hope you're hearing this story.
Yeah.
Because they were using paper ballots and people came in with proper ID. They had special ballots. They declared in her particular area, they had 20,000 special ballots that had been cast, and a winner was declared before those ballots were counted.
Well,
so, people were going, people were looking for a place to vote, because some polling stations were closed because of the problems with the Election Canada.
Yeah, they go to an awful lot of trouble to make them look legit, but they're controlled by the internet. And I just wish people would get that memo. And we have county commissioners all over this country that deny it, and they look ridiculous because people know that the races are fixed all the way down to county levels, city levels. So we all keep pretending that everything's fine. And as long as we keep pretending, this is just going to keep on happening. And wait till the next election, midterms, when we have all this stuff go on again, and for some reason we all just want to think that everything's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine.
So that's just one account.
Okay.
Out of British Columbia.
Okay.
If you multiply that across the whole of Canada, what do you have?
A lot.
If one apartment building in every area was denied the ability to vote. And she points out that it was heartbreaking to have to turn voters away. She said many of whom were first-time voters.
Yeah.
They have never voted before, but they came out for this one. So add it up.
Okay, so let's talk.
How does it happen?
Yep, let's talk Spain.
Oh, well, Spain.
Yeah.
Everybody has heard by now about the big power outage, right?
Yes.
And so what happened what the
Mm-hmm.
heck happened to this there?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so easy to put your finger on it. And in fact, it's much
Mm-hmm.
like COVID. All the people who should know better are totally perplexed. They can't.
Oh my gosh, it's a
We don't
mystery.
know what happened.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't understand why.
Uh-huh.
But it looks like there was a problem clearly in the power grid, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to know that in Europe, the power grid is all interconnected
Mm-hmm.
across EU, even
Right.
across national borders and boundaries. And Spain is the #1 producer of solar and wind electric power,
Okay.
to the point that they have destroyed much of their other power generation infrastructure.
Okay.
Like, hey, we don't need the nuclear power plant, so let's just
Right.
destroy it. We don't need a coal power plant, so let's destroy it. And so this is what the Institute for Energy Research is
Okay.
saying about Spanish power. That the outage was caused by a problem with the European electricity system.
Mm-hmm.
Red Electrica
Mm-hmm.
blamed the outage on a very strong oscillation on the power grid. And I had to kind of go slow. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
electrician or
Mm-hmm.
electrical type, but their reliance on solar energy, they believe, at least these people believe, was a contributing factor.
Right.
So, as you might
The
assume,
contributing, right?
well,
Yeah.
that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And what causes an oscillation in an electrical
Mm-hmm.
power system
Mm-hmm.
is the unstable, with a solar or wind generation, you don't have steady power generation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the wind blows, sometimes it doesn't blow. Sometimes the sun is, shining bright, and sometimes it's not. And those peaks and valleys on electrical production is
Mm-hmm.
what was causing that oscillation.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Well,
they
we're gonna
closed.
We're going to go
their
to break.
largest-
We're going to go to
Sure.
break. We'll be right back. A little bit more on this. I'll give you my feeling on why. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show. More with Melissa, Midwest Melissa, when we come back. KateDalleyRadio.com.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
It sure ain't no surprise. We're living on the edge.
All right, welcome back, Kate Dalley Show. All right, so just wanted to mention allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. I would get refills. I would get, if you would like to have antibiotics like a Z-Pack or amoxicillin on hand, if you would like to have hormones on hand, whatever the case may be, okay, whatever it is, ivermectin and fembenzenol. I was just listening to a clip of Dr. Artis talk about the parasites inside of tumors, that they're actually parasite egg sacs inside of tumors. Very, very compelling stuff. And just wanted to mention to you that you should probably get rid of the parasites that you have. We all have them. So anyway, ivermectin and fembenzenol for that. Just go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate because they actually send them to your house and they're doctor prescriptions, which I like. All right. So back here with Midwest Melissa. Go right ahead. You were talking about the Spain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a bit of a simplified technical explanation for what
Okay.
happened. So some people have said, oh, they had super hot weather and that was what caused this big oscillation with their with their power, with their renewable power system. Other people have said, oh, no, not that. At the time that it happened, about 60% of their power was being generated by renewables. But they were able, starting early that morning, early Monday morning, they were watching this oscillation kind of build in, how to say it? It was building in strength. The oscillation was getting more and more important and powerful. They, about 2 years ago, they took their largest coal plant offline. And fairly recently, they just took all their nuclear power plants offline. So they're making this transition into 100% renewable. And the problem is that renewables always have these oscillations.
Yeah.
And so I guess if what I have read is accurate, transmission systems has to balance generation with the load. And when they get out of balance, then things start to go awry. And that's apparently, they were seeing that early in the morning. They have some places where they can monitor the constancy of the electrical generation, and that was not happening.
Right.
So once those, and when that happens, by the way, they do still have some nuclear plants. But when that oscillation began to happen, guess what the nuclear plants did?
What?
They went to automatic shutdown. Because we can't have a core meltdown now, can we?
Yeah.
So all of their nuclear power plants went dark.
Right.
At the same time, their solar is only generating 60% of their power and less. They have no battery backup. They have no coal backup. So the next thing to happen was just a major crash on all the systems.
Okay. So these things are doomed to fail, implemented to fail, I do believe. And I believe, just like electric cars, the things that leftists get behind, and I hate to say it this way, they're such morons that they actually think these things are the way of the future. And they're not the way of the future. They're actually there to fail. So we're looking at solar. We're looking at electric cars. They know they'll fail. That's why leftists, this is why they are told to get behind these ideas for all the wrong reasons, is because I feel they are doomed to fail. They know they'll fail. They know it'll screw us up pretty bad. Look what it just did to Spain. Here's a great example. And they're pushing it here. Stop pushing it, because people are just, it's moronic to think that these things are going to work. They're not, right? We have evidence in front of our faces.
Here's the kicker.
Oh my gosh.
So in a traditional coal-fired, whatever generation system, they are able to store large quantities of power. The problem with renewables is that you can't store anything without huge battery systems, which are incredibly expensive.
Right.
So either the people of Spain are going to pony up a whole bunch more money to install expensive battery systems that are very inefficient.
Yeah.
What they had to do to get their power system back online was fire up the diesel.
Yeah, because in the end, we always have to turn to that, which would make more sense if we didn't spend all this money and just kept that. But, you know, it's the leftist, communist, globalist point of view. It's wild. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com. eerie.com.
Love it. I love it. I love it. No, it's Cooper Allen, suit and tie, 16 tons. And welcome back to the show. I've got Melissa and Midwest Melissa. I also wanted to mention Cozy Earth. And you know what I'm going to say. Mother's Day is coming. You have time. Get her the gift she wants, and you'll be a hero. I'm telling you what, these are and you'll get to benefit from them too. The most luxurious sheets in the world. They are high end, but you get 40% off. So that makes it quite a deal. Plus you're helping Truth in Radio stay on the air. And I really appreciate that. CozyEarth.com. These are bamboo viscose sheets, and ask the honey for them. You know what I'm saying? And put in the code Kate. And this is a great, phenomenal Mother's Day present. So CozyEarth.com, and the code word is Kate. All right, Midwest Melissa. You know, I would rather have a Chinese sick bat cough in my mouth than I ever would want to live in a country that solely relied on gobbledygook renewable, because we're begging for it to fail. We're begging for the problem. So I just, I can't imagine why somebody would think that was a good idea.
You need to come visit me, Kate. We have bats here in Indiana.
I want a China sick one.
Oh, I don't think we have any Chinese bats. We have Indiana brown bats.
I want the COVID bat. I can't believe
not
people.
Here. Sorry.
Oh, geez.
There are
still
no COVID bats. Remember
I
that?
know. Yeah, they're not. But, you know, they keep selling the story, so whatever. All right. So moving on, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's talk about Germany.
Today is a very auspicious anniversary. Today is the 80th anniversary of Hitler's suicide pact and death at the end of World War II. Okay, so apparently happened on, let me see, what is today's date? April 30th, 1945. So there has always been this rumor. Well, let's talk about what the actual historians say happened. So Hitler took refuge with his like a core group of his staff members and Eva Braun and his dog Blondie went down into the bunker. And when they realized that there just was no escape, that the Russians were closing in on Berlin, supposedly Hitler took a cyanide pill and shot himself in the head. Eva Braun took a cyanide pill. The dog was killed. Then their loyal whatever, guard, I suppose, took the bodies up and burned them, and then buried the bodies in a shallow grave. That's the story. And when the Russians finally came into Berlin, they found the bunker, they found the burned bodies. It was announced that they had the bodies of Hitler and Eva Braun, that Hitler was dead, that they had Berlin, everything was good, right? That's the story that we've all been told. But was it really what actually happened? And there have been rumors forever, ever since, for 80 years, that somehow or other Hitler was able to escape Berlin and make his way to South America.
Right.
So 2 days ago, in a response to some diplomatic overtures from the United States, from a couple of senators in the United States, who are now looking at the role that the bank Credit Suisse played in funding Nazis, not the government, but individual Nazis, in setting up Swiss bank accounts and harboring ill-gotten money and art treasures and jewels and all the stuff that the Nazis looted. So there are some senators who are taking a look at that, and they're trying to follow the financial trail from Switzerland, which always leads to Argentina.
Okay.
So they ask the current president, Milei of Argentina, could you release the rest of your files on Nazis? In particular, we are interested in financial records. So just like we've had the big release of JFK files here, that 2 days ago, they just released 1,800 plus pages of files that have been kept top secret and confidential in Argentina on the activities of known Nazis in Argentina after the war. So I'm not sure. For the most part, at least the early, I'm not able to read the Spanish originals. But for the most part, there's a lot of detail on Eichmann and Joseph Mengele. Eichmann eventually is arrested and taken to Israel and put on trial and is executed there. Joseph Mengele was able to escape the Israelis that were looking for him and ended up dying in like 1975. But what happened to Hitler? Did he make his escape? And there are a lot of reasons to believe that perhaps he did, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. He was against suicide. He was firmly against suicides. I thought that was kind of funny that suicide was the story. Because he was vehemently and publicly against suicide. So
the fact that he would do that
didn't make sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if he did not die, it leaves a lot of questions. Well, who were the bodies?
Yeah.
And apparently some of the information that came out of the Russian archives said the Russians ended up in possession of Berlin at the end of the war, and they recovered the bodies. They kept the skull that they said that was identified as Hitler's skull. And apparently in the KGB archive, it was noted and has been known for a number of years that the skull that had been identified as Hitler's skull was that of a woman. It was never Hitler's skull, and they knew that.
Interesting.
They have never, and in fact, the Americans, at the time that the Russians announced that Hitler was dead, an American commander in Europe said, "We have no reason to believe that any of this is accurate. We do not have any forensics that would tell us that this is 100% accurate." So at the time, there were questions. So let's talk about rat lines for a minute.
Okay.
You know what a rat line is, right?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
The rat lines are the escape routes that many Nazis, in our particular interest here, is Martin Bormann, who was a close confidant of Hitler, who recognized that the war was not going well much earlier than other people that were surrounding Hitler. And Bormann began to stash art and gold and cash and all kinds of things into Swiss bank accounts, including, I thought this was very interesting, the BIS Bank. Do you remember we talked about them a long time ago?
Yes.
The Bank of International Settlement, which was headed by an American. So Bormann was stashing money in these Swiss bank accounts, and then they were very carefully moving money out of Switzerland into Spain, and then from Spain into Argentina. It was a money laundering operation that was designed to get their cash and goods. They were setting up a rat line for themselves. How are we, when the war goes badly for us, how are we going to get out of here, and how will we finance it? How will we finance ourselves for the rest of our lives? Okay,
we're going to come right back on that note. We'll be right back. I would imagine he escaped. Anyways, we'll come right back with Midwest Melissa. Intriguing on the Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right, welcome back. And you're welcome for bumpers that you never hear anymore. So, good old Jerry Reed. Anyway, when you're hot, you're hot. When you're hot, you're not. I can't remember the title. Anyways, that guy. So welcome back to the show. And I've got Midwest Melissa on with me. We've been lied to about so many things. It's unbelievable. I remember years ago doing a show with Investigator Dave, and he was on the same talk. He was quite convinced that Hitler got away because Hitler was propped up as the person he was too. So you don't just get into power just by accident, right? So welcome back, and of course the remineralization, that show. Remember that, and the whitener, that is right on my website. Go and get that. It's like $20. It's so worth it. And she also has the liquid minerals too. If you did that baking soda test that was on podcast, make sure that you are doing that too. But remineralize your teeth. And then of course, My Pillow. So My Pillow has the new Rev drinks for the brain cognition drinks. They're awesome. And I've got some. They're great. And I am telling you, go get those. And then also their sheets, their towels, everything. Their loungewear too for Mother's Day is an amazing gift. You can get up to 80% off. Use the code Kate at mypillow.com. And FIQ. Remember FIQ products because they're awesome. FIQsupplements.com. That's where I get all of mine. Okay, Midwest Melissa.
Okay.
Keep going.
We'll just get to the heart of this.
Okay.
In February, I believe it was. Oh, no, I'm not sure it was February. In 1945, we'll just say that way. There were two German submarines, as the war was winding down, two German submarines pulled up on the coast of Argentina. About 50 people secretly made their way to land. One of them offloaded a bunch of people. The other one offloaded a bunch of stuff. They loaded the people up in buses and drove them away. The stuff went who knows where. And there were eyewitnesses that said they saw Hitler get off the submarine.
I believe it.
There are eyewitnesses who said that Hitler received hospital treatment later on. There are eyewitnesses to all of this. There are people, and Hitler, they found a place in Patagonia that was so far back up in the hills that nobody could go there easily.
Okay.
And that is the presumptive location where Hitler spent the remainder of his days. Not necessarily a well man.
Well,
the question I had through the whole book, and so to kind of follow this on through, the FBI and American intelligence clear through 1955 was still looking for Hitler in South America. And they were interviewing the eyewitnesses.
Right.
That's in FBI files. J. Edgar Hoover said it was too good to pass up. Let's add to this the story of Juan and Eva Perón, who were absolutely big time supporters of the Nazis. And there is a story in which Eva kind of looted the Nazis. She renegotiated. They were paid off supposedly with some of the money. And Eva made a new deal with them and demanded a great deal more money, which is totally, that's totally Eva Perón all the way to the bottom of her manicured fingernails.
No wonder it was Madonna that portrayed her.
Oh, she's perfect.
in a movie. Anyway.
Well, my real question has always been, these rat lines that were in operation, and Hitler was only one of, they presume, anywhere between 10,000 to about 18,000 Nazis who made their way out of Germany into South America, but they didn't all go to South America. for sure.
Yeah.
Why would the United States be complicit? Why would they know that Hitler was not dead? What's the angle here?
They were propping him up.
There are many who believe that they were trying to deny the Russians that moment of glory. They did not. They wanted the war to be over, and the only way for the war to be over was for Hitler to be dead.
Yeah.
And if the Russians announced that there are some people who believe that the Allies let the Russians take Berlin because they knew that what the Americans and the Allies really wanted was not there. What were the Allies looking for? They were looking for the rocket men. They were looking for the atomic scientists. They were looking for the encryption guys. They were looking for the people who had mastered German submarine technology. They were looking for their high-tech aviation engineers. That's what the Allies were looking for, because they did not want any of that to fall into Russian hands. And the deal was, we're going to let them have Berlin. Hitler can leave. We don't care. They're going to announce that he's dead because they want that victory. But we're going to have their atomic scientists, their rocket guys, and their encryption men.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Werner von Braun, the head of the V2 rocket program, ends up in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts? It's just nuts. And this town, Bariloche, in Argentina, significant number of blonde-haired, blue-eyed Germans.
They had a very large German immigrant population there before the war, which is why it was the perfect place for the Nazis to go, because they would not stand out.
Yes.
They could go to live in the Bariloche area, and no one would question another German.
Yeah. Yep. And it's phenomenal. If you drive up to the top of Argentina, the Nazis also had a town called Twin Town, and there's a significant portion of people that are twins. Very interesting stuff.
Don't forget Mengele.
Yeah.
The guy who did all the horror experiments on twins survives in Argentina without a doubt. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's not even doubtful.
Yep.
They know that he was there.
So I'm
Never
glad.
prosecuted.
No, I'm actually glad you brought this up. This is the anniversary, right?
Today.
Yeah.
Of the supposed suicide. I don't think it was. I think Hitler did make his way out. I think he and Eva Braun did make their way into Argentina.
I actually think the way was made for them. I think that was planned. You know, it's kind of like us being over in Germany, and we had kind of like, not offices, I can't think of the word because I'm on a time crunch, but we had our bases there, and some of those were never harmed. It was just very odd. The whole thing was odd, and
there were many high-ranking German officers who knew that they were going to be in trouble, and they were trying to make deals with the Allies. We will join you to fight the communists.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you, Midwest Melissa. Really appreciate it. On to Susan Reeve. Be right back on the Kate Dalley Show. Don't go anywhere. KateDalleyRadio.com.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Dream was to take over the whole country. I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust him? Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
I am
And
happy.
then you start hitting me with fake questions. You start telling me that a guy whose hand is covered with a tattoo doesn't have the tattoo. You know.
All right.
I mean, you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not.
Let me
No, I
just
am
tell
not,
you, I don't trust a lot of people. But I do think this. I think that let's say he respects me. And I believe because of me, he's not going to take over the whole. But his decision, his choice would be to take over all of Ukraine. Okay. It's a war that never should have happened.
All right, welcome back. Kate Dalley Show. I got Susan with me, and we have a lot to discuss. So Ron Paul interview tomorrow, and Chris Ann Hall, so doubleheader tomorrow. And of course, that clip is really interesting. The one thing that I really I've always liked about Trump, and I've always said this too. I do believe the presidency is 100% completely controlled, though. But I will say this: I have always loved his style of like calling it out in the moment and saying, "Yeah, I don't like you. I don't trust you." Actually, there's something that just loves that he does that. I think it's funny, and I think people appreciate it because you don't hear that very often. So I actually really, really like that. All right, Susan, back here with you, and how are you doing on a Wednesday? How are you?
I'm doing so fantastically. I think the news just keeps getting better and better while the media is freaking out. I just see such progress in so many areas. So I'm happy.
All right. Well, okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about Catherine Austin Fitts' interview with Tucker Carlson. Yeah?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
According to X, it's got 3.5 million views so far, and he just put that out. But let me just tell you, so you've had her on the show before.
Oh, a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. She's an investment banker. But in her bio, she started her career, and this is going to mean something to certain people, Dylan Reed and company becoming the first woman promoted to managing director. And this was critical too, where she pioneered underwriting municipal bonds. So that is what helps cities function, right? And she understands at a very granular level how money flows in cities. And so they called her the Wonder Woman of Muni Bonds in Business Week. And then in 1989 to 1990, she served as Assistant Secretary of Housing and Federal Housing Commissioner under President George H.W. Bush. And then she later founded and led the Hamilton Securities Group, a Washington, D.C. investment bank. I mean, she is a big, big player in the finance world. I mean, there's obviously bigger players. And she sat on the board of Sallie Mae, one of the big education funders. So she started this website because she went in, and I love this, and she talks about this in her interview, that she went into government thinking, I'm going to solve the mortgage problem. I'm going to go in there and solve it. And when she came up with these creative ideas, somebody from the previous administration approached her and said, I don't think you understand. That's not what you're here to do. That's not what they're trying. They don't want you to actually do that.
Okay.
And she's like, what do you mean? So she felt like she was a little bit set up. Anyway.
Okay. I'll play this. Let me play. This is some snippets from the interview with Tucker. Right? Okay. Here we go. All right, here we go.
You suggested the control grid is in part designed to manage the population.
So if you want to move people to a much lower economic footprint, having complete control is obviously very convenient.
Okay, so the bottom line is the majority is about to get a lot poorer.
So the question is, where's all this money going? And one of the things I've looked at is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built.
What would be the purpose?
I think if you're worried about a near extinction event, 300 or so years, the central bankers do a reset. And I think they knew they were coming into a reset. And they felt with this technology that they, if they didn't globalize, someone else would. And they wanted to control the process.
They needed the money to go into space?
The capital.
Well, I don't even know what that means.
So I think they wanted to build the capacity to become a multiplanetary civilization.
Okay, and then I have more, but I just wanted to say on that now I just lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe I just did that. Okay, let me keep playing.
No.
It's live.
You were going to say that that they're doing it for money laundering purpose, not to actually go into space. That's
yes, and not to actually go into space, but money laundering. Yes, I do believe that. On that, I'm not sure I agree with her on that. I actually think it's just straight up money laundering. But also, yes, and also the 100-year reset that she thinks that we're due for, because they like to do that every 100 or so years. So just think about that, because she was saying that, and that's kind of interesting for the time if people really don't think that that's coming. Okay, now here's more. Here we go.
Really?
Yeah. Or if I pick up the Treasury financial statements, they're meaningless. They don't mean anything.
What's missing?
You can't know. All you can know is a secret group of people can make whatever they want go missing, and you can't know what it is. But the absurd thing is, as a legal matter, to take the position that an administrative policy agreed upon by the uniparty can overrule the Constitution, can overrule the laws, and can overrule the regulations simply by, you wave the wand and suddenly magically law doesn't matter. They're free to break the law. At most, all they have to do is kick back a piece of the profits to the Department of Justice. So it's like a formal kickback system. And what you're saying is that you're taking the sovereign immunity of the BIS and through the New York Fed, extending it to the banks that are running these operations.
Like JP Morgan and the rest, Bank of America. Yeah.
Right. So what you've done with the BIS, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, you've created all these different organizations. And if you look at, we did like 40 in Latin America, you've created an international overlay of organizations that have various forms of sovereign immunity. Of course, the big one being the BIS. If they are
Bank of International Settlements.
I mean, if you look at the financial crisis, what you're saying is these companies can lose trillions of dollars, have it replaced by the taxpayer, and keep on going.
So now is the point of the conversation where I have to ask the obvious question, which is, who are these people? So can you name some of the people who you believe are making these decisions, whose decisions are effectively, as you just said, above the law, have effective immunity?
Right. So that's the question, sort of, who is Mr. Global?
Yeah.
And my experience is the bureaucracy that sort of runs things is the central banking bureaucracy. So we've described the BIS and the central bankers. So think of the planet as a house. So you have the house, then you have financing the house. That's the mortgage. Then you have the insurance. And if you don't have the insurance, then you have the equity in the house, right? And the insurance layer is very, very important to make sure that the equity is protected, right? Okay. So you got the real assets, you've got the banking system, you've got the insurance system, and then you've got the owners. So in my experience, if you go to the BIS and you look at the systemically important institutions and the members, that's the bureaucracy that runs the debt and the transaction system. So the transactions, because the whole thing depends on being able to swap and transact. The insurance group is very important for the reasons you just described, same as on your house. And then the question is, who are the real owners? And that's the mystery. And I've spent my whole life trying to figure out who are the real owners. And if you know their name, they're not one of the important owners. Do you know what I mean? It's intergenerational pools of capital. Now, here's what's interesting. One of the most powerful pools of intergenerational capital that I've ever dealt with is the Harvard Endowment. And if you look at the squabble going on over who controls the Harvard Endowment right now, it's a very interesting squabble. But I think the big fight is not in asymmetrical warfare, the fight is never what the fight's really about. Harvard Corporation, the university is only a portion of the Harvard Corporation. The Harvard Corporation runs the university and it runs the endowment. Okay. And the Harvard Corporation, in my experience, is one of the most important investment syndicates in the world. And because they have a tax exemption, they don't have to pay taxes. They provides all sorts of intellectual and human capital to the investment syndicate.
That was a great statement right there at the end, because she's saying Harvard supplies them with all of the people that are working at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all of these different. So it's a funnel system. And this is why it's always been so protected. So I love that you sent me that, Susan, because these are great clips, because there's so much packed in there that it's so relevant to what's happening right now. And I do think we know who those families are, but I think she won't name them publicly. But I think we do know the bloodlines, right, that rule the world. I mean, it's been, that information's been out there for a while. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I love when she talked about the intergenerational investment pools, that these families do not let this money dwindle. They don't let it break apart. And so it's like this permanent embedded wealth. Also, this whole fight with Harvard is right now in the news, where Trump is saying, we're cutting you off, and they're acting like they won't be able to survive. And it's a $50 billion investment fund that they sit on, and only 4% goes to the university.
Right. And like she said, the fight's never really what we're told the fight's about. So the little fight they put in front of our eyes is not the bigger fight going on behind closed doors always, right? And so that was an interesting caveat. There's several in there actually, but I don't think it's a mystery. I think we do know, but they are the families that are never on the Forbes list. They do not like the publicity. They don't like being named. They like us to argue about Soros and Bill Gates and all of these characters that they've put in front of us, but that is not who's at the helm, right? So we have much different people at the helm. So if you just joined us, you were listening to Catherine Austin Fitts, who I've had on the show numerous times, talking with Tucker Carlson about how things are run, like how it actually how in some ways, how it works. And so I thought that was interesting. The who behind when we say deep state, who are we talking about? Be right back. More with Susan Reeve when I come back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure for this, I hope I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Back, Kate Dalley Show. I'm so glad you're tuned in today. I've got, it's a Wednesday. Tomorrow, Ron Paul and Chris Ann Hall. And today I've got Susan Reeve and Melissa today. So Susan's with me. And I just wanted to mention the FIQsupplements.com. I get asked at least once a week, who do you use for supplements? Because there's so many brands. FIQsupplements.com. They have the best prices and the best quality ingredients because you want it to absorb into your body. And I've taken a lot of supplements through the years that did not absorb. And once I started taking FIQ supplements, I kid you not, I started feeling it. I was like, oh, is this what it's supposed to feel like? So when they actually work. So stop buying the stuff, the crap over at Walmart and CVS and all the rest. Buy something that's actually going to do you some good, because no one loves to take supplements, but you should. And I take the cod liver one too. It's good for thyroid. All kinds of, they just have wonderful ones, histamine, everything. So you can't go wrong. It's awesome. Very, very awesome. FIQsupplements.com and allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. Go over there and get some refills on the stuff that you need and get it right to your door. You don't have to find a doctor for refills anymore. Allfamilypharmacy.com /Kate. Use the code Kate10 at All Family Pharmacy. Okay. All right, Susan, back here with you.
Yes. early on in the interview, Tucker Carlson, speaking to Catherine Austin Fitts, a former investment banker, says, this is all a lot. Like, this is a shocking amount, of which he says is why I probably never looked too closely at it. And she says, and this is so important, she said, reality is the door you open to find real solutions. And she said the biggest obstacle is that nobody wants to face it. And she had a pastor say, if we can face it, God can fix it. And I would add to that, God can help us fix things. But this reality-based approach that you're just not going to turn away from these things is really, first of all, she's very courageous to do this. And I was telling you off air that the government litigated against her for 11 years. They literally tried to destroy her. And she had to go to her family and say, can you back me up? And this family that she'd given money to over the years, because she was making a lot of money, they stood up and helped her. And she said it really opened her eyes as to who you can trust. And it's not the government.
Because I'm sure people are thinking she worked for George Papa Bush, who was Mr. CIA. I mean, he hired people that were CIA. And she could have been part of that and left. Maybe she still is today. Who knows? And he wasn't going to surround himself with people in those positions that weren't in the club. And I wouldn't say full on agent, but just part of the club and in general. And so one always will question that. Same with Tucker. Tucker's father was intelligence, and so I'm always. Just to be honest, I'm always kind of looking at everything that's being said, always with everybody, because there are so many people in the club. So I'm just trying to throw that out there to everybody that that the media is permeated with intelligence, and so people from intelligence and in different ways. So you just never know. So
well, and she said one of the reasons she started her own site, the Solari Report, was because she had been so mistreated by the media. She was also on the board of Sally Mae, and she said the head of the board came to her and said, it's time for you to join the Council on Foreign Relations. And she said, I'm not comfortable doing that. I don't want to do that. And he said, well, you don't seem to understand. If you don't join, you're off the board. Yeah. And so she didn't join. And so there's people who go in with good intentions into government and then discover or are told this is how it really works. And people have to make a decision. And honestly, a lot of people choose to go with, with the money.
Yeah, with the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR. I mean, that's like deep state. Yes. Here in America.
She said she was talking to an Idaho senator. He said, here's the problem is the state sends $1 to Washington. We get $1.19 back. And so our constituents say, I'd rather have the 19 cents back. We're getting extra money from DC. So play the game.
Okay. And that's why she kept saying too, this is my experience with prefacing every statement. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show, KateDalleyRadio.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can.
Yep. You're going to hear music you don't hear anywhere else on the show. You guys remember that? I remember when Mac Davis actually had his own show. Yeah. Anyway, I'm old. Anyway, welcome back. I've got Susan with me, Susan Reeve, and we're talking about Catherine Austin Fitts, and I just want to say, look, media is permeated with people in the club, but it doesn't all mean that they're the same in the club. And a lot of people tell a lot of truth, and people get confused by that because they're like, well, that person's saying stuff that, will get them killed, or it's, oh my gosh, that's so much truth. They're all the people are going to say truth. Otherwise you wouldn't listen to them. But it's just, you always have to be dissecting all throughout. So even when I'm playing Catherine Austin Fitts, even when I'm playing Tucker, even when I'm playing all these people, I'm always really listening for what's being said, because we all should be doing that. I can't imagine that all of us aren't doing that all the time, because media has been so hijacked now. And like I said, it comes from the Pentagon press corps to the AP to us. So you got to know that people are in the club, and you just sort of look for little things that might go, yeah, I don't know about that. All right. So Susan.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for saying all that. And we're here to analyze what they say.
Yeah. Exactly.
She goes on to make these statements that through her own analysis, and it took a year for her investigative team to figure out that between 1998 and 2015, $21 trillion went missing. And she's got actually a website, missingmoney.solari.com, that goes through all the things that they found. And the question is, why did they take it? Where did it go? And she paired up and teamed up with another person who they spent 2 years looking for these answers. And she has proof, she knows that they've created underground bases and a network of transportation. The reason being is that they are very afraid of near extinction events. And you think about it, she says this comes from a very deep spiritual place, actually, on their part, which is, if you don't believe in God, or you feel like you're challenging God, and there's no hope for humanity, you're gonna think, I need to do something else in case of a near extinction event. So she says they're very fearful and they're very corrupt. And she said, but when they counted up the potential number of underground bases in the US and surrounding the coast, so in the water surrounding the coast, she says, we came up with a number of 170.
Wow.
I know. Tucker
170 DUMBs?
Base, yes.
Underground bases.
Deep underground, military bases, yes. With a linking network system, transportation system. And so that kind of makes sense. And she said this really all started when they realized in about 1995, there essentially was a financial coup. And it started officially in October of 1997. And it was to create kind of a breakaway civilization. She said, now this sounds crazy, unless you remember, she was an investment banker. She looks at the numbers. Where did the money go? And you remember the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld stood up at a press conference and said, we are missing $2.3 trillion. We can't explain where it went. We're just missing 2.3 from the Pentagon.
And the missile, plane hit right into the computers that were moved in front of the missile, plane, to be destroyed, by the way, the morning of. Just wanted to throw that in.
Well, and so, we all...
That contained the info. Sorry. That contained all the proof where that money went. Sorry. Yes.
Yes. And if you think your little appliance shop owner who becomes your representative in Congress is going to tackle this problem, that's not how it works. So somebody outside the system herself, after seeing the system, said, wait a minute, we're going to follow this. We're going to look for the money. And that's what she did. And so this idea of a breakaway civilization, but you think about, what are the billionaires? What did the Facebook founder do in Hawaii? Is he created this big bunker? Yes, Mark Zuckerberg. So there's a lot to this. And she said the other thing about it is they're very worried about the solar minimum and not being able to feed the population. And that's legit. They know it's not global warming.
Right.
We're like at the beginning of a solar minimum.
And
so
they're not worried about it, I don't think. I think they're salivating over it. I think they'd like to get 90% of us gone, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But they know that there's going to be a price.
Right.
There's going to be unrest. So they don't want to be here.
Right.
They want to be elsewhere.
Okay.
So
want me to play this clip?
Sure. So this is about breakthrough energy. Yes. She said this is part of the solution.
Okay.
You're the risk manager and you're in charge of managing the planet. You know, this has more disruption capability, both weaponization, economic. You know, suddenly everybody's free to do whatever they want, and so they're much harder to control. So if you're Mr. Global and you have the capacity to dramatically lower the energy cost, the other danger is then population skyrockets, and you're concerned about that. So if you're Mr. Global and you're worried about what will happen if you bring this technology out, it's very convenient to get complete control. If you don't trust the population to be environmentally responsible or politically responsible, then complete control.
So
wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super interesting because she said actually breakthrough energy, which isn't your fossil fuels or whatever they call, they're not fossils or plant fuels, aren't going to be the solution. And so she gave an example of a friend of hers who runs a company called Brilliant Light Power. And it is electrical power from hydrogen to dark matter. This just sounds so science fiction, but you can go to the website, brilliantlightpower.com. And he said it's new, commercially competitive, non-polluting, plasma-based primary source of massive power from the conversion of hydrogen atoms of water molecules to dark matter, the previously unidentified matter that makes up most of the mass of the universe. That's like, wow. But now from her clip, you see why they don't want us to have this in a lot of hands, right? But one of the things that's currently happening is that as AI things are popping up, as Amazon is building more and more, they're having to come up with their own power sources because the electrical grid can't, sustain that. There's too much power. She said, actually, the Wall Street Journal just pointed out that Texas needs 30 nuclear reactors, 30. And when everything is in gridlock because the environmentalists sue. I mean, Trump is trying to deport criminals and the judges are saying no. So it's constant gridlock in our society. And she thinks this is in part why they want a command and control economy is because stuff will get done. Look who they just hired in Canada. Mark Carney, command and control politician, financier, right? Banker. So it's all making sense.
Yeah. And speaking of banking, I don't know if you guys remember this. We did a deep dive on Disney. I had a guest on Disney and he talked about the Illuminati Bank of America, right? That's what he called it. And in the 1930s, they had bankrolled Walt Disney, even though he was a failure. They bankrolled him, Snow White. And the Bank of America actually was created from Bank of Italy. And that came from the control of the same oligarchy that ran the Knights of Malta and the Renaissance of Venice. And the Bank of Italy gave us Bank of America. And so there's such a history there. And it goes back to H.G. Wells, all kinds of League of Nations, all kinds of things. Anyways, be right back. Kate Dalley Show.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Oh, there you go. There's a bumper for you. Welcome back. And of course, NorthPoleFlagpoles.com. The guy's such a patriot. Get your flag from him. There's other places you can buy your flags from and get one on your RV. They have the kit. They'll send it to you. You can attach that right to your RV, your truck, your car, what have you, your front lawn, your business. Get one for your business. This guy is local to me. He's on the main boulevard of the town that I'm in. And I'll tell you what, he is the real deal. He's such a patriot. And NorthPoleFlagpoles.com, they have a beautiful gold muted pole in honor of Gold Star families. You don't have to be a Gold Star family to get it, but it's in honor of those Gold Star families. And I just love it. So this guy is great. He's fantastic, and he'll turn cartwheels to try to help you. And get your flag from him, okay? NorthPoleFlagpoles.com. If you're a business, get a flag. Let's light up every community with these beautiful, beautiful flags of America. Okay. I've got Susan Reeve with me. Okay. You ready? Oh, you had something else to say, by the way, I think.
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Austin Fitts, in addition to make sure you watch her interview with Tucker, makes this really important point. She said $500 billion to $1 trillion in our economy and in the stock market, it bumps up the stock market value, is from the illicit drug trade and other trafficking markets.
Mm-hmm.
And our government knows it. They could also stop it, but they choose not to because our stock market would take a hit and it would upset a lot of people that the stock market goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked a group of 100 people if you could hit a button and just make it stop, and take the drug trade away from our country. By doing this, would you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And she said only one person said they would because of the hit on the stock market, that the rest were like, well, it wouldn't be worth it to us to lose all this additional money. And so there is a vested interest in keeping this going. And when you see all these deaths every year, over 100,000 people dying from various overdoses, you have to understand that there is a financial system that is propping that up and benefiting people, especially in our own government.
Especially.
And financial. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, she makes that point. I thought it was super important. But I wanted to mention before we end that today is the 50th anniversary of the Fall of Saigon, and essentially the official end, the end of the war in Vietnam. And the reason this is significant to me is my husband always told me that he had a high draft number, but he graduated in 1975, the same year the war ended.
Wow.
And so he did not go off to war. And I always tell my kids, you're alive because you didn't die in Vietnam. But there's an article in the Federalist that makes some really important points, that our troops remain demoralized by defeat. So 50 years after that humiliation on a global scale, globally humiliated, that in 2 days out of Saigon, they airlifted more than 7,000 people. And that's what it's famous video clip of that helicopter falling off the top of the embassy and being pushed off the aircraft carriers to make room for new ones. It really was a humiliation. But this author, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning historian, said that about 40% of draft age men served in the military during that 10-year period, 65 to 75, but only 10% of draft age men served in Vietnam. And then only 1% of all draft age men even saw serious combat. So it was still a large number. But one of the things they did that really messed people up is they limited their time there to 6 months, to a year. And that made everybody green. You're sending over constantly new green people. And so there were no really experienced battle-hardened people out fighting. And they said that ended up causing a big problem. So people were really demoralized about going in the first place because they knew they were going in green and the other people would be green. So you didn't really appreciate that. But then a huge percentage of them used drugs while they were over there. So you know how that ended up impacting our culture and society too. Who would think that our government would have pulled out the stops to never have a repeat of anything similar? But what did they do? In Afghanistan, we had the Joe Biden debacle, pulling out of Kabul. And we lost people. There were people blown up. The Taliban was invited in close. It just was this huge replay, 10 times worse, of what we saw in Saigon. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? It makes me wonder, why was that allowed to happen? Was it for the photos? Was it to humiliate us? I often wonder. You know, and Trump said we gave up that Air Force base and it's close to China. How stupid were we to do that? So anyway, it just goes to show you that now there are fewer and fewer people who would even consider joining the military, more now that Trump is in. But this whole thing with Vietnam, it just affected us for the last 50 years. And
Iraq. And Afghanistan and the poppy fields in Afghanistan. And you know what I mean? It's just, it's ongoing. And ever since we got the United Nations, it's been nothing but that. So, people are tired.
And nobody is going to buy the altruistic reasons anymore to go into places. I remember being sold on that as a young teenager. Oh, it's to stop communism and help the people develop capitalism in Vietnam. And they said the same thing or nearly the same thing in Iraq. And then look, we took out Gaddafi and opened the floodgates from Africa. So, I mean, nobody is going to buy these altruistic, noble stories anymore because we've been burned too many times.
No, you're right. And they know that we're putting in puppets. And so our own puppetry. And it's, you know, murdering Gaddafi. Gaddafi actually was liked in his own country. And so it was just, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. And people are finally onto it, which I like. Because you know what? It has nothing to do with the country. And that's where the youth gets misguided. They think it has everything to do with America. No, America's amazing. It's the deep state that's doing all this stuff. Blame the people that are actually sending them on these errands for their little elite clientele, right?
That's right. Well, and this historian makes this crazy point that we dropped 3 times as many bombs on Vietnam as all the Allied forces dropped on Nazi Germany in World War II. Jeez. 3 times that number we dropped on Vietnam. Amazing. And there's still people living with the effects of Agent Orange. And I happen to know one. So it's all it did was erode trust in American institutions.
And that's why we got the moon landing. I'm seriously not joking. We stopped going to the moon a month after the war ended. All right. Be faithful. Be fearless. Tomorrow, Ron Paul and Chris Ann Hall. For this show today, get the podcast at katedalleyradio.com. Thank you.